Let's take a look at the Nile Song. Got to be the heaviest song Pink Floyd ever did. It starts in the key of A, but it's going to move progressively through a number of different keys. Each verse is in a different key. But the chord sequence is pretty straightforward. It involves an A chord which you can either play as a barred A chord, like that, or as I was doing it, like an F chord with the lying down finger at the 5th fret, and you can hook your thumb over, or even not, you can avoid that thumb if you want to. The chord sequence is going to go from A to G, and then the final chord will come down 1 fret further to F sharp, and continually in this song, the original chord of the verse is shared with the chord 2 frets below it, and the verse ends on the chord 1 fret below that. That's the sequence, and it sounds like this. Into the next verse. So there are various different ways you can strum this. You want to keep it quite simple. You've got a lot of distortion on your guitar. Keep the right hand pattern relatively simple. For example, down, down, up, down, down, up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, up. The simplest pattern you could use would be a simple 1, 2, 3, 4. All on downs, but you can put those little ups after the 2 and the 4 as well. And then the next bar continues on A for half a beat and then drops to G. And the simplest pattern here would go 1 and 2, 3, 4, with downs on 3 and 4. Let it ring after the drop to the G chord. You could put an up after that final down as well. Or you could track what the drums are doing. Down, down, up, down. That tracks Nick Mason's drum fill in there. Any pattern like that will work. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, and a little down up at the end there if you want it. Do that 3 times. At any point that you want to in this song, you can slide back to the original chord. Time, 3rd time, and the final time drops to this chord 1 fret lower. Bring whatever shape you're using, the bar or the F shape, down 1 more fret. If you're using the F shape, try and hook that thumb over on the 6th string here, because if you can, you want to do 1 strum around the middle of the chord, and then begin to chug on the low end, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, that would be 1 bar, and then build the chord up in dynamics. 1 and 2 and is around the middle of the chord, 3 and 4 and on the high end of the chord. So you get a sense of coming to a crescendo. Let's come from the previous time round the sequence. And 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Bigger and bigger all the time. Now what happens, very cleverly, what the song does now is it takes this chord that we landed on and treats it, if you know your music theory, it treats it as the dominant chord, which means that the tonic now exists 5 frets higher than this chord. So instead of going back to A, we're going to come up 2 frets beyond A to B. This chord, F sharp, can be treated as the dominant of B. Don't worry if that doesn't make sense to you, you don't need to know that, but it's a very interesting way that they've chosen to arrange this song. Now we do exactly the same thing, but starting on B. 3 times. And down 1 fret. Now what if we treat this as the dominant chord? Come up 5 frets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We reach the chord of C sharp at the 9th, these fingers at the 9th fret, or the bar if you're doing it that way at the 9th fret, and we do the same thing. I won't play it all through, but... You get the idea, right? It's going to follow that sequence, one chord down 2 frets and finishing 1 fret lower than that each time, and then the next verse starts 5 frets higher than where you ended. So let's go through the sequence. The intro starts on the A chord. Verse 2 starts 2 frets higher on the B chord. Verse 3 on the C sharp chord, finger at the 9th fret. Verse 4 at the D sharp chord, up at the 11th fret. Verse 5, I will follow in her shadow, 2 frets higher than that, an F chord at the 13th fret. But the pattern's still the same. And then 2 frets higher than that would take us to G, but we can drop back down the neck to G here at the 3rd fret, going to F, and then E is the 3rd chord of the sequence. That's the beginning of the guitar solo, and the guitar solo goes for 2 times around the sequence. The second time, 2 frets higher than G, it goes to A where we started, but it does the same thing. Dave Gilmour comes back and sings one more verse, She is Calling from the Deep, and that is 2 frets higher than our A, that's B again. So we've gone round the cycle and we're now continuing to climb again. This is where we started verse 1 on B. When he finishes that verse, the outro is a fade out on the chord that comes next, the verse that comes next after this one, which would be 2 frets higher. It goes up to C sharp. That's as far as he gets, I think, before the record fades out. If you want to continue playing, you just keep continuing up 2 frets higher every time. And that's how you do it. That's the rhythm part of the Nile Song. Now, the guitar solo to the Nile Song is buried very deep in the mix. It's hard to hear every single individual note in there. And additionally, he's using 2 guitars and playing solos on both of them, not at the same time, but you know what I mean. On the record, 2 guitar solos are going simultaneously. So it's very difficult to turn it into one composite solo, and it really doesn't matter. What I want to do is just take literally a couple of minutes to show you the positions that he's using and have you improvise a solo using the sort of ideas that Gilmour is using. He solos initially on the G sequence, so we want to be playing in the key of G. It's a very bluesy rock track, so we're going to use, Gilmour uses the G minor pentatonic scale in this position, if you know your scales. And just change that down there, that's good. And he concentrates initially a lot. I'm going to give you just some ideas of the kind of things that he's going to be doing. He concentrates a lot on the note on the G section of the solo that is on the 2nd string at the 18th fret. There's 15, there's 17, there's 18. And he bends that note. He starts the solo by bending it and hitting it a few times. You can let it relax and bend and then bend it back again. Don't be afraid to come back to the 2nd string at the 15th fret. The other thing he does from time to time in that solo is he'll bend that up and he'll pick while it's bent up, the 1st string at the 18th fret. And then pick the bent note again and relax it. He can use the 3rd and 4th strings at the 15th and 17th fret. You can get a semblance of, you can get a feeling of speed by hammering on and pulling off those notes. Hammer 15, 17 on the 4th string and hammer and do the same thing on the 3rd string. Bend that 3rd string note as well. Bend and release, feel free to release it, pull off, 4th string, back to the 3rd, and then maybe we could jump back to our original bend on the 2nd string. So we get something like pick the 1st string maybe, but release the bend. Anyway, that's the position he's playing out of for the sequence that goes from G to F. When that chord drops to the E chord, we're in the wrong position to play that. We want to pick up a single note somewhere. Your note options for that E the B note on the third string, let me count, the third string 16th fret, you could slide into that. You've also got that same note on the 12th fret of the second string. And because we're soloing over an A chord, you've also an E chord, you've also got the E note on the 12th fret of the first string. You can even get away with the second string 15th fret. So when the chord switches to E, hit any one of those notes. Sometimes I'll hit two of them like that. Okay, now when the solo continues over the A chord, exactly the same stuff works, except shift everything up 2 frets. So the notes that were, for example, on 18 and 15 of the second string are now on 20 and 17. So let's finish this video by playing through the 2 times around the chord sequence that represent the guitar solo, and I'll just improvise a little pentatonic solo over the top to give you an idea of those ideas in practice. One day I'll look at you.